Okay, time for our Soapbox Social Panel. We know that housing is not affordable for a lot of people in Metro Vancouver, but RBC says this week it is now a full-blown crisis. And with us here in studio with their thoughts is our Soapbox Social Panel, Kyla Lee, a Vancouver criminal lawyer for Acumen Law Corporation, and Mo Amir, the host of the podcast, This is Van Color. Hello to you both.
Hi.
Hello.
Are we going clubbing after?
We want to do that.
You got the glasses for it.
You've got solar eclipse glasses envy, don't you?
Love it.
I think they're pretty
I am
cool.
envious.
They are very Devo-esque, though, I think. So, it's hard to keep up with all the housing announcements. They've been coming federally, they've been coming provincially. Mo, what has stood out for you?
The RBC report, I feel like, was a no-duh moment. Like, if you live in Vancouver, you know that it's a crisis. In terms of what stood out for me from the recent announcements, has to be the flipping tax, right? Like, I know we were told about that this was coming, now to see it and that it's going to be not only rolled out soon, but actually be retroactive for property purchases for a couple of years before that. I think that's great because the reality is the higher up you are on the property ladder, so the more equity you have in one piece of property or several pieces of property, the easier it is to just accumulate property after property. And I think that has to be mitigated if we want more people to enter home ownership. And so, I don't think it's going to solve everything. The Premier himself has admitted that, but I think it's a great policy. It's a good policy. Perhaps could be great.
Okay, well, while we're on the flipping tax, Kyla, we'll get to you in a moment, but since you brought it up, yesterday we did hear from the Finance Minister, Katrina Conroy, specifically about the legislation. So how this works out is people pay a 20% flipping tax if they sell their home within a year of buying it, and that starts next year. But you did say there are some retroactive qualities to this as well. Afterwards, she was asked how she would ensure that people don't exploit loopholes.
You produce a death certificate. If you've divorced, there's legal papers. If you have another family member come into your home, I think it's pretty obvious that you can prove that. And that's if you've had a baby or if you have a parent that comes to live with you, things like that. If you have to move because of job relocation. We don't want to make this punitive to ordinary British Columbians. This is about going after speculators who are just doing it for a profit. So we want to make sure we're supporting ordinary British Columbians. So we will have some leeway with the exclusions.
Mo, what do you think of her response on that?
I think on paper, some of the loopholes are fair. Obviously, if there is a family separation or even a change of composition of the family, if there's a child added or children move out, all of that seems to make sense. I'm sure that they will be exploited, so I hope that there is some sort of enforcement. The one loophole I have an issue with is the primary residence loophole, which allows for basically an allowance of $20,000 on profit if it's your primary residence. Because the reality is that after 1 year of holding a property, there is no federal flipping tax. And one thing I do want to point out, and I should have said it earlier, is that this provincial flipping tax is on top of the capital gains tax if it's not a primary residence, and it's on top of the federal flipping tax as well. So again, I understand the fairness of these loopholes, but I certainly hope that there is enforcement arms to make sure that it is being everything is above board.
Right. Potentially a significant hit if you are going to flip. Kyla? Let's go back to the housing announcements as a whole here, and you're welcome to weigh in on the flipping tax as well. But what difference are you watching for in terms of the actual impact of these announcements?
I really don't think that there's going to be any meaningful impact. I think people who are already out profiteering off housing aren't going to be deterred by a 20% tax. I think that people who are using housing in ways that take it out of the market and unavailable for people to live in are not going to change their behavior. They see housing as an investment. And at the end of the day, this isn't stopping the way that property values are continuing to increase. This isn't stopping the way that the market is continuing to be unaffordable for most people. And so I'm underwhelmed, extremely underwhelmed. I think we need aggressive measures, and I don't think this is even close to what we need to stop the soaring costs of living in this province.
What kinds of aggressive measures do you think would work?
Well, I was saying to Mo, I think that there should be no profit. I think you should be banned from making any profit on selling housing. Why should you be allowed to buy a house and then sell it within 1, 2, 3, or 5 years, with some exceptions, I accept that, and make any profit at all? It's not meant to be used for that purpose, and it is preventing people who otherwise should be able to afford a home. I look at my friends in the United States and what they can buy for what won't even get you a down payment in this city. And I think that the way that we've let this be exploited for so long, there's nothing short of banning profiteering that is going to make me happy.
What do you think, Mo?
I mean, that's never going to happen.
No,
I like the idea,
not
but I don't think
realistic.
that's realistic. One thing I think that British Columbia and Canada should perhaps look at is something that they do in Singapore. So in Singapore, on your first property, if you are a citizen of Singapore, you don't pay any additional taxes in terms of what's already there. If you're a permanent resident or foreigner, you do pay some additional taxes. On your second property, even if you are a citizen, you do pay additional taxes. On your third, fourth, fifth property, you also pay more taxes on that. And that is a way to just deter this accumulation of properties under, one ownership. Now, the flip side to that is, and I'm not sure exactly how Singapore does this, you don't want to deter building. So at the same time, you want to incentivize developers to build, but you don't want to have people speculating and really treating this as a commodity that's like traded on the stock market.
I see. Okay, I want to switch gears here a little bit here because there's a big political showdown taking place today. It's the former Vancouver City Councillor Andrea Reimer, the current City Councillor Christine Boyle, and they're competing to become the provincial NDP candidate for the new riding of Vancouver Little Mountain. Kyla, what are your thoughts on this internal race? Those are both pretty recognizable names.
They're recognizable names, and I think they're also very influential, especially with sort of the more left-leaning NDP supporters who may have felt a little bit abandoned by the party recently. So, it's concerning that these two great people are being pitted against each other. But there's a part of me, like a little cynical part of me, that thinks that this is actually maybe a strategic move by the NDP to make them fight for this position rather than, giving them separate ridings, because it's drawing a lot of attention, a lot of talk back to the NDP and showing that the NDP can get good candidates that cater to people who are maybe thinking, maybe I'm going to go green, I don't want to vote for you anymore, and making people a little bit excited about what other ridings and candidates we might see in those ridings.
Suspicious mind.
Yeah, totally.
Okay. Mo, what do you see as the pros and cons of each of these candidates?
I'm not sure about pros and cons, but I think that the way that this race is set up, you have Andrea Reimer, who basically has the, George Heyman's blessing.
Yeah.
So George Heyman has said, vote for Andrea Reimer. I want her to carry on the work. And that's kind of how she's positioned herself, as carrying on the work. Christine Boyle, on the other hand, has positioned herself as, hey, I'm actually going to challenge the BC NDP internally and pull them more on the progressive end, pull them more left, however you want to call it. What I find fascinating about this race is, despite it being high profile, it's still a relatively closed race. This is only going to be decided by about 200 people who are BC NDP members. This is not one of those races where you go out and sign as many members as you want. I think that benefits Andrea Reimer because a lot of those members are probably very loyal to George Heyman. So I think she has an advantage there. But certainly, I think to Kyla's point, this is a great problem to have. And I think it does strike me as strange that the party internally couldn't figure out a scenario where they ran both candidates.
Right. Any predictions, Kyla?
Ooh, you know what? I think I'm going to say Christine Boyle.
Wow.
Yeah, just to disagree with Mo.
I saw that coming.
Yeah.
Mo?
Yeah, no, I do think Andrea Reimer is going to win for the reasons that I've outlined. She has the endorsement from George Heyman. She has the endorsement from Melanie Mark. The BC NDP MLAs are not supposed to get involved. So people, bring up Christine Boyle's personal relationship with the Premier. And yes, the Premier's wife, only on her own behalf, did endorse Christine Boyle. But beyond that, there doesn't seem to be a lot of the institutional NDPers that are still active in the party really supporting her. So again, in a very small race like this, I got to give it to Reimer.
Okay, well, we're going to be watching the results, and I'm sure we'll be hearing from the winning candidate tomorrow on either the early edition or on our show as well. Hey, before you go, it was interesting at the outset of the program today, we had a couple of Gastown business owners in here. They're really upset about the signage and the closure of Water Street and also of Powell Street between Main, and because they're doing all the road work and the reworking on Gastown, they're going to keep it, pedestrian only for a few months. So we've got Gastown traffic issues. We've got, I came across the Burrard Bridge this morning, and because of the work on the Granville Bridge, there's so much traffic into and out of the city on Burrard Street, on Granville Street. There's some road work on the on-ramp to Cambie Bridge right now. That's causing slowdowns. You know the North Shore Bridge as well. So I'm going to ask each of you. In light of this, Kyla, what would you say is your biggest commuting pet peeves right now?
I'm going to get canceled for this. It is cyclists in rush hour who insist on driving on the busy, like multi-lane, high-traffic streets when there is a dedicated cycle use street 1 block over. Get in the cycling street. Get out of the way of rush hour traffic.
Okay, and we've
Canceled.
got a lot of cycling streets, don't you? Do you think she's going to feel the repercussions? Oh, there goes the Twitter line right now. What about for you, Mo? Your commuting pet peeves.
I mean, you already signaled it. It's the Lionsgate Bridge in its entirety. First of all, 3-lane bridge? Who designed this? And then this weird thing in the center lane where you're on it and then it turns yellow. And so you try to speed up a little bit, but then you're in a panic to get back into the right lane. And then you had that incident with the reckless motorcycle rider making it even worse. I mean, that is my pet peeve. I do live on the North Shore, so I travel that bridge a lot. I feel like it's always backed up, certainly when I need to use it. And so, yeah, that is my number one traffic pet peeve.
You don't have a problem with the cyclists on the sidewalks on the
They're going
Lionsgate.
faster than the
They're
cars.
going- yes, they are. Yes, they are most days. Listen, great to see you both. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's our Soapbox Social panel. Mo Amir is the host of the This Is Van Color podcast. Kyla Lee is a criminal lawyer for Acumen Law Corporation.